James, thank you so much for agreeing to step up as our guest instructor today to share some of your wow factor and maybe even shine a light on one or more people in this amazing group who could really benefit instantaneously from your insights. Take it away.
But no pressure, right?
And listen, no pressure, but I don't have any doubt about it. I don't. So let's give James a round of applause and a wave. And I'm here to chime in if it would be helpful, but you just take it away and share a little bit.
Thank you, Nancy. What Nancy's asked me to do today is to talk to you about first impressions in websites. A goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. And the reality is that most people visiting your website have an attention span of 6 seconds or less. So what I did is come up with, based on working with folks and working with customers, 6 tips to get people, to convince people to stay in 6 seconds or less. And so that's what I'm going to go through today. I'm going to do a drive-by on a couple of sites, members of this group, and then I'm going to spend more time on one site because it's a great example of the simple changes that can be made that will have a significant impact on the effectiveness of the website to make that positive first impression and to draw people along their journey.
Hey there. We enjoy sharing our knowledge with business owners. We understand that online marketing can be daunting. If you like this video, you can help us out by liking this video, subscribing, and bang that bell so you get notified when we upload fresh content. Your support is greatly appreciated. And of course, if you have thoughts or comments that you'd like to leave for us, use the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you.
One of the things that I talk about before we even start talking about technology and websites is there's 2 strategic things that need to be considered. First and foremost, who are your best customers? And by implication, who are your best prospects? Because your best prospects look like your best customers. You need to understand this audience very thoroughly. Create an avatar. What are their demographics? What are their psychographics, attitudes, that sort of thing? What is their pain? What is the problem they're trying to solve? And then what is their gain? What can they achieve by working with you? And then map the customer journey. Understand the steps that your customer goes through from prospect to becoming customer to becoming a loyal best customer. And I made that distinction clear. The purchase is not at the end. The initial purchase is usually 2/3 of the way through the journey. And the most important purchase is not the first purchase, it's the second purchase. And that's true with any category. You want people, because when they buy from you a second time, the chances that they'll buy from you a third time and or recommend you to other people and or the list goes on is tremendous. So understand who your best customers are, and then by implication, who the prime prospects are. Do your avatar, map their journey, because that's going to inform the content, inform what you say on the website, because the website is part of that journey. And there's things that happen before they get to the website that you need to be thoughtful about. Now, the other side of this is internally. What is the primary objective of the website? What is the primary thing you want the website to do? And when I ask that question to most business owners, I will get a litany of things they want the website to do. And then we'll have the conversation about the old movie, The Highlander, and there can only be one. People of a certain generation will smile at that. But you really want to be clear on what that primary objective is. And then when you bring those 2 things together, who your best customers are and prime prospects and their journey, and what's the primary objective of the website, so outside in, inside out, when you bring those things together, you've got a lot more clarity on your value proposition. What is it that you're really trying to convince people to do, and what's your value, why they should do it with you?
James,
Yes?
when you talk about roles of the website, what are some of the things that people say the role of the website might be?
The most common objective of a website is that I hear over and over again is conversion. I need to convert. And nothing wrong with conversion, but truthfully, it's actually probably not the right objective in a lot of situations, particularly for professional services people, for coaches, for people who are selling expertise, consultants, that sort of thing. The majority of people who are getting to the website as a result of word of mouth, and whether that word of mouth is actual word of mouth or social media type word of mouth, they've heard about this person, they go to the website. What they're really looking for is not what you're trying to do is not conversion, it's confirmation. And that's when you start thinking about the customer journey. Because once you've confirmed in their mind that you are a valid solution to their problem, then the conversion becomes a next step. Whether that conversion is book a meeting or buy something or whatever it might be. So understanding those distinctions are important. There are other situations where the primary objective might be information. That is very useful if you have a large sales force and they're using the website to provide information, links to pages for customers to give them information. And these are all valid things, but the two most common are conversion and then confirmation.
And could I ask one more follow-up
Sure.
question? Is it fair to say that for professional service providers, building a bridge of trust at the first impression is important?
I am going to go into that in detail.
Great. All right. I'll keep my mouth shut.
No, they're great questions. I mean,
Rock and roll, baby.
this is what I'm going to be going through. So what I'm going to go through quickly, now that I've set the stage, I'm going to talk about the 6 tips at a high level and just introduce the six ideas. One of them is trust, Nancy. Then we're going to go through, drive by on a couple of sites, and then I'm going to spend some time analyzing one site in particular. So the 6 tips. Tip number 1, you've only got 6 seconds or less to engage your prospect. Page load speed. Is your website loading? Because part of that 6 seconds is the time it takes for the website to load. Click, 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 click. So this is where having a well-built site on a robust host, people have a tendency to go for cheap and cheerful with hosting. I can get hosting for $5 a month. And I'm like, good for you. Really bad idea. The second thing is you need to confirm to people that they're in the right place. And that's a visual exercise more than anything else. That's making sure that your branding is clear and easily registers. Make sure that your color scheme is consistent with their expectations. Use the same fonts. If you've got a social media post that's blue and your website is pink, instantly people are going to be like, am I in the right place? You don't want them spending time thinking about that. You want them to land there and instantly go, I'm in the right place. Then you need to give them a benefit-oriented reason to stay. Make sure you're presenting their problem to them. Sort of quick Reader's Digest structure of a good landing page on a website. What's the problem? Agitate the problem, suggest the solution, provide reasons to believe, and call to action. Present the problem, agitate the problem, present the solution, provide reasons to believe, and make the call to action clear. The 4th tip is visual. Make your pages friendly. Make no big wall blocks of copy. Line length should not be longer than about 900 pixels. I see this all the time. People have got them. They're like big, long lines of, it's very hard to read, and big blocks of copy. it's very intimidating, and guess what's going to happen? They're gone. So you want lots of white space, you want good, sensible visuals, you want the visuals to contribute and help people flow through the page. You want to be very conscious of visual hierarchy. Your major headlines are going to be one size and one weight, and secondary headlines will be generally smaller and of a different weight. That visual hierarchy helps people scan the page and understand where they need to be. Fifth thing is inspire trust. And that comes through social proof, that comes through testimonials, that comes through, client logos, that comes through as seen on. All of these are different ways. You don't have to put them all on the page, but you do need to have some sort of messaging on the page that will inspire trust and help build that relationship and give people that reason to believe that you are in fact a credible choice and a credible option as they're trying to solve this problem. And then finally, the sixth point is an A, clear call to action. Not multiple calls to action. Think of the website as the outer skin of an onion. You want to draw people in, because if you can draw them in, then you've achieved your 6-second goal. Because once they're drawn in and they've found the content they're looking for. So don't put the great American novel on the homepage. Show people their path. This comes back to the avatar and the journey thing that I talked about at the beginning. Make it very clear what their call to action is, that where they should go in terms of finding the content that you're looking for. That ties into what's your primary objective of the website. That means, and people will often come back to a website. So introduce the call to action early and often. If you've ever seen a direct response television commercial, the 800 number exists throughout the commercial. They haven't even really told you about the product yet, but the 800 number is still there. And the reason for that is a very large percentage of actual engagement with the 800 number happens with people who've seen the spot more than once. And they just see it again and go, right, I needed to do that. So make that call to action clear and unique and early and often. Does this all make sense? Any thoughts or questions on this?
Cheryl has a question.
I do have a couple of questions. When you were talking about the length of the 900 pixels, lots of white space, was that the length of the line, the actual type?
Yes.
Okay, so that was my first question. And you said,
or 900 pixels or less, because
Okay.
I mean, there's a reason that newspaper columns are narrow, is because it makes it easy to read, right?
Okay.
Because people can just scan through and they don't have to work too hard. The same is true with websites. Big blocks of copy that are a mile from left to right are very hard to read, and particularly if your audience is over 40, which I, again, appreciate nobody in this group is that, but for those of us who are over 40, that it's just hard to read. So make it easy to consume, and they won't bounce. They'll stay past 6 seconds.
And second question was visual hierarchy. You were talking about lengthwise. Define that for me a little better, please.
Just make it easy so that people don't have to think about where they should look next.
Okay.
For example, typically most people are right-handed. Most eye tracking, if you look at eye tracking studies, most people scan a website from the upper left-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner inside their viewport. A hero section of a website where the call to action is in the lower left-hand corner because they put it in the left-hand column instead, and they put an image on the right-hand column. That lower left-hand corner is the least eye-tracked spot on a web page. So you've just put your call to action in the least viewed spot on the page.
So would you put it at the top right or the bottom?
No, the top right is where you put your logo, or at the center it works as well. Because that's where am I in the right place? Because that's where people will look first.
Okay.
They'll look at the top right or the center, any place up in there is fine, but that's, yes, I'm in the right place. I recognize that logo. Then they'll scan down diagonally across the page. Hang on, I just unplugged myself.
I remember learning about that. It's a classic Z pattern in business school. You start here and then you end over here.
And so that's what I mean by visual hierarchy. And then if you've got more content below the fold, make it easy for people to navigate that visually. Because people, back before pre-pandemic, when I was doing public speaking, I would be talking about website design and UX and that sort of thing. And I'd stand in front of a room of 700-800 people, and I'd have my hand up in the air, and I go, now everybody touch your nose. 80% of the audience would touch their head. And my point was that people are visual. They see before they read, before they hear, before they think. They're visual. So when I go, everybody touch your nose, the vast majority of the audience will touch their head.
That's one of the reasons why I draw out. I had my partner for all of 8 weeks because we couldn't get along. She hated the fact that I would sit there and draw things out logistically with people and teach them as I went. And she goes, that's so unprofessional. They got it. They followed me. They went with it. And I never had a problem.
No, it's not unprofessional. It's smart. People are visual.
Well, exactly for that reason.
And they will remember that more than they will remember the words. So make sure that visual hierarchy is you're aware of it. So your goal here is make it easy for people to consume the content. Make it easy for them to follow their journey. Make your website, so your website is like a hand in a glove. So they know where to go and what to expect. I hear this, people talking about bounce rates. I don't know if anybody's familiar. Nancy will know what I'm talking about. Bounce rate is the percentage of people that leave the website from a specific page. And everybody is, very clear on, okay, I have to lower my bounce rate. And then I'll be a little voice in the wilderness and go, maybe. Because if you have a destination page on the website that has a high bounce rate, 80% of the people who land on that page leave. However, their time on the page is way above average for your website. What that's telling the people at Google Analytics is these people found the content that they wanted and that they valued. So thus, if you look at your own analytics and the pages that have a high rank, you'll find that a lot of them have higher than average dwell time and a higher bounce rate. Still want to have your call to actions clear so that if they want to take action, they can and will.
And then my last question was going to be, when you are the social trust and whatnot, as an advisor, there's certain things you can't do. And a lot of times it's testimonials. You have to be really careful with what you do as testimonials because of compliance.
Sure. But there are other ways to communicate that social trust. It can be companies and brands that you've worked with. It can be your own quotes, but where you've highlighted the events where you spoke at. Right? You're looking for ways to reinforce, reasons to believe that you are in fact competent and capable of delivering on what you're promising. Social proof is an obvious way to do this because people love to hear what other people think. But if you have regulatory reasons, there are other ways to get at. And that's why I don't talk about social proof is one of the execution techniques. The goal is inspire trust. So if that's the objective, inspire trust, there's lots of ways to do that. But if you have you've got a checklist, I need to have social proof on my webpage, but I can't, there are other ways to do it.
I might also point out that the rules about testimonials for financial advisors have changed, and there's like a 122-page document that explains when and how you can use them, even as a financial advisor who's a fiduciary. And many of the organizations that are responsible for ensuring compliance are taking a rather slow and laborious laborious approach to approving all of that. But if you get showcased on Forbes or in the business journal in your backyard, or do what you can until you get the green light to do everything you want. That's my advice.
Yep.
Even podcasts, right?
Sure. Even podcasts.
So let's see some of those drive-bys, because
Okay.
I'd love to see this brought alive for some of our fellow members here.
This is the first one I want to show you. This is what happens when I try to access Marilyn's site. So this is a problem. It's a pretty easy problem to fix, but and one of the challenges is I doubt very much if Marilyn is experiencing this because she's on our website all the time. But modern browsers are very sensitive to security, and we blocked access too. And the reason why the access was blocked is, you see where it says HTTP? It needs to be HTTPS. The S stands for Secure Socket Layer, SSL. It's very easy to do. Any web host can do it. Some of them charge you for it. They really shouldn't, but that is what it is. But this is something to be very aware of, that modern browsers are being very sensitive about this. So if you don't have an SSL on your web hosting and your website, you've got a problem. Because never mind 6 seconds, I couldn't even get there in the first place. Okay, sorry, Marilyn.
That's a very important thing to bring to attention so action can happen.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a brilliant observation, and I'm sure Marilyn is really happy to hear about this so she can take another step.
The next one I want to quickly look at is Christy's site. Christy has done a really good job developing her website. And I want to highlight a few things. There are a few things that can be better, but she's got a very strong visual messaging here. Now, one of the things that I would suggest is sliders like this. Modern UX, we generally recommend people not use sliders on the homepage because they're, oh, look, a bird. Oh my God, the squirrel ran by. Right? It's a distraction. This image is fantastic because the model is looking at the food, but their model is also looking at the thing. Oops, come back here. The thing we want them to read. This is a benefit statement. Are you ready to use food as the first solution to boost your fertility? It's very clear. I would suggest that having the great American novel in a call to action is generally not a good idea. Make this a subhead to this, and then just go click here or book now or some clear call to action. Am I in the right place? It's a wonderful logo. You've got it positioned in the center. The menus are off to the right. If the menus are going to be off to the right, I'd move the logo over to the left. We will sometimes put logos in the center when we have a more complex navigation, because we'll have 3 or 4 things on the left and 3 or 4 things on the right. Logos in the center, it helps break it up. You don't want your main navigation to have more than 3 or 4 things in it. Again, you only have 6 seconds. Don't waste people's time trying to figure out where they're supposed to go. Make it real easy. You've got your URL is Blue Veil Wellness, but you don't need to do it all as one word here. In fact, you probably don't need this at all. Just get right into the, am I in the right place? Visual, make it easy for people to consume the content, benefit, call to action. And if what I was saying before about speak to the problem, agitate the problem, and that's where this subhead, you could agitate the problem by just rewriting that as a subhead, something along the lines of, are you ready to use food as the first solution to boost your fertility? but you're struggling with what foods to choose or what foods matter. I've stated the problem, I've agitated the problem. Download the list, click here to download the list, or something short, punchy, and clear, and drop the slider, be my recommendation. And then down below, she's done a good job. Line lengths are not too long. She's got reasons to believe in here, what is functional. So she's communicating her expertise. And then she's got this is a path. If it were me, I would flip these two. I would put this path here and put this down below, because you want to, what's their journey? I'm not sure that, the about Christy, you might want to emphasize that, because in large part, you've got a call to action up here, but you're also very concerned about confirmation. And one of the reasons to believe is your expertise.
May I make one comment or ask a question?
Sure.
The focus of Christy's work is ultimately enhancing fertility.
Right.
So in the copy block where it says, what is functional wellness and nutrition? I was kind of hungry to hear, and how does it connect to your fertility?
Exactly.
Because that could be a strengthening subheading to make the person who landed here know instantly that it's truly for them. Because as I read the copy, there isn't any mention of pregnancy there. So it's just it was sort of like hiding in plain sight. If it was added, it would be even stronger.
And this is a missed opportunity.
Elaborate.
You've already established your branding, and that's awesome. They're not here for your branding. They're here for solutions to their problems. So another
positive pregnancy test.
A positive pregnancy test picture here, or a picture of one of these pictures that are up here with pregnant women with food. There's lots of things you could do, but this is kind of a missed opportunity. I want to move on. This is a tool that we use to analyze website page load performance. And I'm not going to get into all of the technical thing. An A is a good thing. Tip number 1 is page load speed. She's getting an A, and down here it says, so it's fully loaded in 5.6, but there's actually content there for people to consume. Some of that's background stuff. So this is good. Okay, this is the People Think page.
For Karen Colligan.
For Karen, yes.
What? Wow. How come?
Well, I can get into all of the how comes, but this is not good.
That is awful.
Okay, so there's tip number 1. Now, if we go to the page itself, I mean, at first blush, this is nice. But when you am I in the right place? I was looking for People Think. That's very clear. Minor little thing, we want to try to keep navigation to no more than 4 things. Ideally, 3 is even better. And that's the home. Adding home into a navigation is an anachronism. It's just not necessary anymore. It was necessary years ago when people were trying to navigate around, but it's just not necessary anymore. Understanding primary navigation versus secondary navigation. You want to put the understand your customer journey and put the stuff in the primary navigation that's going to help your best prospect find their way to the content they're looking for. Some of these could probably live quite comfortably in the secondary navigation and not get in the way. People will know where to look. The blog, for example, the podcast, for example. This is attractive. Inspiring leaders and teams to be the best they can be. Nothing wrong with that, but is it really addressing my problem that I'm looking for? Is it communicating who it is that I'm trying to talk to? Who is my prime prospect? It's kind of generic.
So
Nice.
Could this be something like how to retain young talent in your fast-growing organization?
We'll get there, Nancy.
All right.
Great question. And then down here, what we do. Now you're talking about yourself here. And you've got, this is good social, this is good trust building for 20 years. But who's your audience? Who am I talking to? And then down here, again, this is all fine, but I don't know if I'm in my journey, which one of these things should I be picking? And then all of this is below the fold, basically. So, the chances are they may not even get there because they haven't gotten past this. Now, this down here, way down here, this rocks. Build your bench strength, ignite your business. There's a problem and a solution. Problem, hint at the solution, call to action.
And so is that something, James, then I should move up to the top?
This is your hero.
Okay.
You've buried the lead,
Okay.
right? This is strong,
Okay.
but chances are most people who get to your webpage don't see this.
Okay.
You see how I talked through this and how it's connecting together against the things I introduced at the beginning.
Mhm.
This, make it real clear. If this is going to be the journey, if you're trying to let people find their path, their journey, make that really clear and understand that that's the purpose of this section. And this section should sit as it does, but introduce it in terms of, helping people find their way.
So could it say something like your solution straight ahead instead of what we do?
Yeah. Or, what kind of business leader are you? Yeah, I'm assuming that that what you're doing here is teaching leadership skills inside of corporations,
So maybe the problem is if you're stuck on a lower rung of the ladder and you want to ascend, what's stopping you?
Well, that's one prime prospect. I don't know Karen's business, so I don't know what her prime prospect is. Maybe her prime prospect is middle managers who want to rise in the organization. Maybe her prime prospect is C-suite folks who want to cultivate and generate, powerful leaders out of their middle management. Two very
Yeah,
different
and my prime-
audiences,
Yeah.
But what
my
about
prime-
this? You can't win.
but I can't tell.
What if it says you can't win big business when you don't have enough players on the bench? Or something like that. I'm thinking it would, because that's the problem. I believe, Karen, and
Yes.
correct
yeah.
us if we're
Yes,
incorrect.
absolutely.
Um,
And my audience are organizations who do not have the right people to go into leadership roles. So
Right. So
yeah.
your best customer prime prospect is C-suite, correct?
I C-suite, HR, that type of person.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So I wanna
understand their
say- I wanna
journey,
say something.
understand what they're looking for, and then give them the path. Then we've got a blocker.
We have a water?
A blocker.
Oh,
You've tossed in a roadblock. I'm on my journey. Why is this here? So you're taking people out of their path, off into this other content.
Okay.
Now, right at the very bottom, we've got some testimonials. Flip these two or remove this one, but get this testimonial, these testimonials higher up on the page, because this is your social proof, and you've got, now they're awfully long. So one of the things we often try to recommend, because social proof is so important, and this structure that I've just described is valid for virtually any page on the website. So, use your social proof, your testimonials, grab a sentence from this one and use it here, grab a different sentence from this one and use it someplace else. I mean, when you're using these things, they're very flexible.
I might point out that SVP sales without the person's name and title and company has less impact than if you had those things in there.
Now, there are times when you don't want to put in the person's name for privacy reasons, but the company name should definitely be there if you can do that.
Okay.
There are legal things and NDAs that are involved, and you may not be able to, but
Well, this one little pull quote, she helps to define a culture of authentic leadership, making space for individuals to grow, coach, develop executive presence while keeping it real. That's a subset of that quote that
Mhm.
could stand alone.
right, this,
Hmm.
right? And the other thing is that these things, these little quotes, you will often use them in a section on a page like this, but you can pull them out and stick them all kinds of places,
Mm.
right? You know, they could be, you could put a quote here, understanding that you're trying to inspire trust. So use the assets you have to achieve that goal. That's the 5th tip, inspire trust, and use it often. You know, another thing I would think is company logos could be very effective. I'm not sure how this is helping you here.
Okay.
James, could she put the podcast maybe further up as a form of trust that people can go and listen to her or something?
Maybe that's a choice, but you know, the David Ogilvy, old ad guy, and no, I'm not old enough to have ever met him, likes to say, one of his famous quotes is, the essence of strategy is sacrifice.
Oh, that is so good.
Right? So there are lots of things that you can do. You have to pick a few.
Well, and
Right.
that brings us to what do we really want to have people do when they land here, which is always the killer question is,
Right. So
You
you've
want them
got
to go
up
listen to
here,
your
we've
podcast.
got 2 calls to action. This, you've got it here, learn more. I'd try to come up with something a little more benefit oriented than learn more. Because this could be, you know, book a discovery call. Right? If this is your hero, your call to action is book a discovery call. And then contact us. That can go up in the secondary navigation, or it can go in the footer. People know where to find that stuff.
even if contact us was made in the same font style as the other items on the navigation, and the book of discovery call was the only one that was highlighted in
That would
orange.
be better. But you've got an awful lot of stuff up here. You know, because again, you only got 6 seconds. And they've already spent, 2 seconds or 2.5 seconds before the page loaded. Don't, make it real clear how to find what they need, how to engage them and draw them in. If you can get them to click on something on the page and they're going to another page, you've achieved it. Has this been useful? Is this is how we think about these kinds of web pages? I haven't spoken about technology or any of that other than the page load speed stuff a little bit, but
Well, let's post a comment in the chat. Everyone who's here on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being this was such value added. I feel so enriched by this. I'm hungry for more. And 1 is I would have rather been in Philadelphia. Please offer a comment for our graceful and gracious and knowledgeable.
not that there's anything wrong with Philadelphia.
Nothing wrong with Philadelphia. And so I know that you have already invested tremendously in reviewing these sites and being so thoughtful in your comments. And I also noticed that there are a couple of people that are wondering if you'd consider a drive-by for them, and while we're still here, or if that's putting you on the spot. What would
I don't mind.
So that being the case, would you consider, I would like you to consider looking at Rebecca's site and Jane's site. It's RebeccaMurray.com, HTTPS.
Rebecca P.
Rebecca P.
Yep, there she is.
Okay, so very good. Thank you so much for being so generous with your comments.
Thank you.
Everybody noticed that this is perhaps putting him on the spot because he hasn't had the prior opportunity to review it, but I'm sure he'll have thoughts to share.
Yep. I have actually looked at this one. I figured I would be better, would serve you all better if I stayed focused on a few things but this is the the need for home is kind of an anachronism. We talked about that before. And if you just removed home from here, then you'd have a real clear path, 3 choices for people that they could follow. Having video on the page, that's great. I would structure this in a left-right column, and this leverage your organization's influence on stage. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure. Rebecca, who's your primary audience?
Corporations hire me to do team building, communications, training.
Okay.
And through, in an edutaining manner.
That's what we need in the headline.
So could it be something like, are you a CEO who wants to add some high octane edutainment to your conferences, team building, et cetera, would that be more?
That's going in the right direction, yes.
Yeah, and that would tie in with the video too, which is only a minute long, but basically it gets into the pain right away, and then
right. So if you have the video, which is great social proof, great reason to believe, in the left-hand column, and you had a strong benefit-oriented headline in the right-hand column and a clear call to action underneath that. Now this is a headline, right? But this is below the fold. Chances are I'm not going to see that.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I'm going to see this and go, well, I'm not quite sure what this person does. And they're gone. Whereas if it was a video on the left and then this, develop leaders who are creative, confident, and compelling, with Rebecca's 5-star. So you've presented the problem and you've hinted at the solution. You could also rework that to present the problem, maybe agitate the problem, and then hint at the solution, and then call to action. Okay. What do you want them to do? What is the primary objective of this website?
Okay.
Now you're getting into the stuff that you do. This might be better if it were on its own page. You want to draw people in. So what you want here, okay, so here we have some pathways. Get these pathways higher up.
Okay.
And then have these pathways pay off with content like this.
Okay.
Right? Because this is engaging content, but it's not helping you on the homepage.
Okay.
Because it's engaging for you want to have this being a powerful payoff when somebody gets to the next, makes the choice to pick one of these pathways and lands on a page, and then you want to give them a powerful payoff. You want to present this as, communicate the pathway, ask a question, entice people to click through. And then this is wonderful social proof. This is a great example of, things that I would recognize, and I just have to glance at this and go, oh, this woman knows her stuff. And now we're off into the ethers again. I'm not quite, this is interesting content, but I'm not quite sure why it's here. Now, if this content were the landing page for one of these panels here, then it would be powerful. Then it would be, there's a reason for it. It's part of the journey. You see what I'm getting at? There's so much stuff on the homepage. I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with it.
It feels like really good content, but I feel breathless consuming all of it.
Yeah.
And if we want to, like right up here, like if scroll up, if you would mind right there, just a little bit. Can I see the headline underneath the first video, please?
Yeah.
Develop leaders who are creative, confident, compelling with this, if that's the main thing that you're going to do, and then the path is boom, boom, and boom. then let the boom, boom, and boom take us to the explosion on the next page.
Exactly.
Instead of having to have the whole bing, bang, and boom all at once.
Right. You know, one of the fourth tip was visual, and we talked about visual hierarchy and getting people to, you know, make it easy for people to find the content that they're looking for. And that's why I talk about pathways and understanding the journey. There's wonderful content here. You're very creative, and it's interesting and content, but it has no context.
So I have a suggestion. You know, when there's an about Rebecca page, the headline there could be born to perform, to serve, edutain, and support your success, something like that. And then all of your cast of characters could show up on the about page. When you hire Rebecca, not only do you get Rebecca, but you get her entire cast of characters who can bring to life powerful this, that, and the other to edutain and inform and kick boring meetings to the curb instantaneously and forever. Something like that. When you hire Rebecca, you get Rebecca and then some. Right?
Yeah.
James, you're so good. Are you willing to look at Jane's side? And
Okay, what's Jane's URL?
I don't know if you've Jane is before I go solutions.
.com.
.com.
Thank you. That's
I hope
really
that was helpful, Rebecca. Was that helpful?
Oh yeah, very, very helpful. Yes.
And I think
need to get rid of 3/4.
I think the thing that this is so good about is that we all obsess about what our website is going to look like and what our website is going to say. And yet, is there anyone in our close circle of friends that or guides or whoever we pay attention to that will look at it with fresh eyes and say, oh, have you thought about and did you consider? And we're just so lucky to have James here to provide that perspective.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. It was great.
I don't know where my eye should go,
Mhm.
is my first impression. I mean, this is cool. This knocked out subtext, you might as well not have that there. It's virtually invisible to anybody who's over 40. You know, but before I go solutions, that's powerful. I'd get your design person to rework that logo so that before I go solutions is much more prominent. So that when people land on the web pages, yeah, that's what I was looking for. I love the use of video here. The visual hierarchy is all unclear. You know, video on the left, headline on the right, call to action. This take a free quiz. This is like a way complicated call to action. Just this button is probably sufficient. Find out how prepared you are. Take the free quiz. So headline, you know, talk about the problem, agitate the problem, suggest the solution, provide the call to action.
I have a thought also. I wanted to call attention. Isn't the largest share of your income comes from training facilitators?
It does. And if you scroll down, of course, that's where you get to. Well, actually, it isn't, obviously, because there's a whole lot of blurb there, but there it is.
Well, what my point was going to be is that on the navigation on the very top of the page, it's completely missing.
It's under courses, but it needs
I know,
to
but
be,
it's completely
yeah.
missing. Become a facilitator is so much juicier than courses.
Right.
And now I know what to do because I have to take off the home and off the contact button, and then there'll be room to become a facilitator in. Is that right? Is that right, James?
Yes, that would
And
be.
I think
Okay, but your audience, your primary audience here is not individuals. It's people. It's professionals. This is a B2B site.
No, it's not. That's one of the problems. That the primary audience is not to professionals. That the whole thing with NatWest, that just sort of happened. It's an extra thing.
Right.
It's not reflected on the website here. So primary audience is people who want to do their end of life plans. And there's two audiences. There's
Okay, so your primary, you're selling courses then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And there's, I'm
What
not passing judgment.
what I'm trying to say is that you're not selling courses. I mean, you are selling courses, but what you're selling is a path to, like, you're selling, you can either find a facilitator or train to become a facilitator, because
Yeah.
that's your primary driver in your revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's so
that's
much juicier than courses. Oh boy, I
Right.
got to get me some courses.
right.
It's not as specific as, oh boy, I found the path to become a facilitator. Like, I'm excited about that. You see, like generic doesn't
Yeah.
get me hot.
Right. And the thing is that I'm not passing judgment on which is best for you,
Mhm.
but there can only be one. Make that hard decision. Who is my prime prospect? And then give them the path. So your prime prospect might be, it could be a very high level concept of people who are concerned about end of life planning. And then you have a pathway that can be individuals and, find a facilitator and then become a facilitator. Works fine with that. I'm making this up as I go along off the top of my head, but the point is, understand who your prime prospect is, who your best customers are, and understand their journey, and then create a website where it's just like hand in glove. I know where to go. This, I have no idea where to go. I don't know who this is for. I'm not sure what it is I should be doing. It's just confusing.
Fine. That's really helpful.
And now here's a good example of line length. Right? This is just so intimidating, and because you've got all these bolds and colors, and I just don't know what my eye's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking about visual hierarchy before, and this is the example of not having visual hierarchy, because you can use color as part of a visual hierarchy. You can use bolding, but it has to be there has to be a plan. And this is you're just shouting at people.
Okay.
Knocked out designers like to do this. I mean, it's hard to see the sort of light color on the same dark color. It's just hard to see. You want to make this very easy for people.
One thing I wanted to point out, because you've called it out a couple of times, if we know who our ideal client is and we're keen to the demographics, the age of the people, if somebody is 45 and better, hire a designer that's 45 and better, because sometimes people that are young designers that want it to look cool, it may look cool, but if your ideal client is 45 or better and can't find his or her reading glasses in that moment, how does that work for your advantage?
Right. And a website is part of a process. It is a utility. It needs to create value for the visitor and create value for the business. I sometimes describe a good website as a fulcrum, maximizes the leverage of what you're doing and creates value. And, all of those things that's strategy. It's not design. So the design should serve the strategy. Then there's more stuff.
No, that is a section about being a social enterprise, like a not-for-profit. I haven't, that needs to go in somewhere on the front page, because that's important.
Okay.
But it's not the right place.
Right. And it can still be a pathway on the homepage, but you don't need to tell the whole story on the homepage. You want people, your goal is to get people to click down a pathway that creates value for their journey.
It feels like a homepage that keeps going and going and going. And your earlier comment about what Ogilvy said about
the essence of strategy is sacrifice.
Sacrifice is, that's what I also want to point out is Jane is a successful enterprise. She's a 6-figure business and growing. She's getting wonderful grants. She's doing great things. And there's a lot of good things here. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that sometimes you succeed regardless of whether or not your website is amazing. And you've heard many people say that, like, get business done, worry about the website later. So now that you have you, the royal you, have reached a level of success that's notable, you can take the opportunity to invest to make some of these upgrades so
Right.
that your branding and messaging rises up to the level of your bigger mission.
Right.
And so sometimes we just throw it together in the beginning just so we have a place for people to land. But
Mhm.
as we become whatever we were intending to become, and it takes us by surprise how quickly it may have happened,
Mhm.
you get someone like James taking a look and saying, hey, a lot of good stuff here. And maybe the true brilliance of it is in what you sacrifice so that you can get more people to do the thing that you want them to do.
Right. And the very first thing that I talked about at the very beginning, and I'm going to circle back to it, I circle back to it all the time, and particularly if you have a successful business, how do we get this 6-figure business to 7 figures? By understanding who your best customers are and by crafting a solution that really resonates with your best customers and then by implication, your best prospect. Because to get from a 6-figure business to a 7-figure business, it's about increasing the value proposition of your audience. It's not about more numbers. There's only so many hours in the day. You can't be everywhere at once. You need to have 5 clients that are paying you $30,000 versus 25 clients that are spending $250. And rethinking the website in terms of who's your best customer and by implication, who's the prime prospect, and then structuring against that audience will lift your business to another level.
Mobile friendliness of the site. Is there anything you can say about that?
It's extremely important. Mobile is very important with a couple of caveats. It starts with your audience and how your audience is going to interact with you. So that's what it looks like on a phone. So I kind of have to go through an awful lot of stuff before I get to something.
So I think that I speak for everyone on this call when I say that the value that you delivered today, James, as a guest instructor, was incredibly high. And I know my own expectations have been exceeded. James, this is the business you're in, helping people to make websites that are without worry. Today, you did website audits for a number of our wonderful clients, and you did that generously. I'm imagining that there are people in the world who would pay meaningfully to have the opportunity to have your eyeballs on their site in this way. And I'm imagining that there may be other ways that they want to get in touch with you, either to have you train them in a similar way, be a guest on their show, hire you to create their website without worry.
Well, I have been listening to the teacher. And I have an easy to say, easy to spell, and easy to remember URL.
Please.
If you go to 6secondsorless.com, you can book a session with me.
Spell it out for us.
6 seconds or less.
6secondsorless.com to book a consult with you.
Yep. And what happened was, you'll notice I put in that URL and it redirected to the Calendly link.
Oh, brilliant.
But 6secondsorless.com, and it redirects to this particular, you'll notice this event is specifically 6 seconds or less website audit.
And so the link to visit is www.secondsorless.com. 6 seconds or less. James Hipkin, an audit waiting for everyone who's watching this, but you better be quick because I'm expecting very high demand, especially when people in the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Facebook group discover the amazing talent that has been demonstrated here. I love you all. Thank you for being here. I'm wishing you a joyful and grateful Thanksgiving with all the people that you love the most, and great conversations that you get to have with people that have something powerful to say that's worth talking about. So have an amazing holiday. I will see y'all here next week, and of course in the Facebook group. Thank you, James. You're awesome. All right. Bye.